Ryan Serhant generates thousands of leads for his 9-figure brokerage, and he's constantly teaching exactly how he's doing it to realtors online. The problem is that across various podcasts, short form content, and YouTube behind the scenes, there are literally hundreds of hours of content to go through. So to save you some time, I've spent the last month investigating Serhant's lead gen strategy. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what he's done to build his own brokerage to 9 figures. So we're going to break this video into 3 parts. And the first part we're going to talk about is lead generation. By far the most important thing. Without clients, you have no business. So Ryan breaks it down into a couple of different sections. And the first is content. So there is a huge shift, which I like to call the polished to raw shift, that's occurred within the last decade. Now, since the 2010s, things like high production TV shows and polished tours have been the go-to for building trust, for getting people to engage, for getting people to convert. And now we're in a new phase in the media world where raw phone shot content that feels like a friend is what's actually more effective. Now, people ask why, and the main fundamental principle to understand here is that trust has been shifted from looking at people as the expert from high production TV shows to now that's looked at as sort of phony, fake, and a lot of people build a lot of skepticism toward that. So now people want to work with people that feel like their friend, people that they can access, things like raw shot phone videos. And that's mainly the main reason. Now, another reason behind this is also just simply because younger audiences migrated from Netflix to TikTok scrolling. So people's dopamine shifted, their desire shifted due to just the way that the modern media has been sculpted. And these are the 2 main reasons why polished videos to raw have made such a big shift. And so what Ryan's using is something called the daily machine. Basically what he's doing is he's posting multiple pieces of content every single day across all various platforms. And he references this as the Serhant universe, basically removing geographic barriers, not being tied down to strictly local marketing, but rather targeting everybody in whatever market he can. So now Nashville agents are the same as New York agents as far as what they're going to be putting out, the information, etc. And this is what's allowing him to cast a wider net and what's allowing him to obviously get more customers in the door. And what this is leading to in the future is that virtual tour data is becoming proprietary selling intelligence. Okay. And the key principle to understand here is that being a friend showing properties is what's going to get you the sale, not a salesperson pitching them. People want to work with someone they trust, not just somebody that says a bunch of good things. Remember, skepticism is at an all-time high and trust is at an all-time low. So that's just a big premise. Polished to raw is the key. But with that being said, there is still a time and a place for high production, especially when you get into your scaling phases. And I know this simply just because of Ryan Serhant and his mass media production, because this is what creates unstoppable momentum. Ryan Serhant has something called the Netflix effect. He owns a TV show called Owning Manhattan. And with his TV show, he explicitly stated it's gotten him a 1,900% increase on website traffic. If you don't understand that, you have to understand how that is a 19-20x times engagement comparative to other platforms. You also have 4x social media engagement. And when people hear the word Serhant, it's instant credibility because they've known him, they've seen him, they know exactly what he does, his process, who works for him, and they just perceive him as high status. And because of this, he's then taken this to the next level at a global education amplification. And he has a program called the Sell It program, where essentially he has 12,000 plus members in 110 different countries. So it's not just the US, but it's across the entirety of the world. And he teaches beyond just real estate. He teaches just sales in general, which this is going to attract an even wider audience, right? And they're consuming and sharing his content, which just essentially means a massive reach, massive referrals, massive conversions, massive sales. And so talking about sales, we're going to break down the specifics of how he does so. So there are 3 main steps to his foundation of sales: finding clients, connecting, and then discover. And the first thing is the pursuit of clients. So he identifies his ideal customer and then books the meeting. Now, there's a million ways to do this: paid ads, organic content, mailing, cold calling, infinite ways to get it done. And the point is, get people booked in so you can speak to them. Without this, the rest of this doesn't work. Next is the alliance. Now, this is something that's actually overlooked, and most people either do step 2 and they overcompensate in step 2, or they overcompensate in step 3, but you need to be able to balance both. And essentially what step 2 is building trust with the 2 C's. So you want to compliment people, obviously. You want to break the ice authentically, show them who you are, connect with them on a personal level, get them to, respect you as a human being so you can be perceived as higher status, and then find the commonality, find shared interest with these people. Especially if you're a newer agent. If you're established, you probably already understand these things. But if you're newer, really, most people that are newer, honestly, obsess over number 3, which is lighting the spark and uncovering the truth by identifying pain points, etc. But they don't do enough with actually complimenting, finding shared interest with people, because the modern doctrine, and especially most of these online courses and gurus talk about, is finding their pain points, you know what I mean? And then you go through the objection handling, etc., all that stuff. But really what gets people is being able to find shared interest, authentically communicating with them. Now, on the flip side, a lot of older agents and more experienced ones that are maybe seeing some lower numbers now in the modern doctrine are relying too much on the alliance aspect and aren't digging into the pain points enough. So there needs to be a balance of both, but in the end, both are essential, and you do need to uncover, obviously, the number one problem, which is their price point. You need to uncover their budget, their ROI, explain to them exactly why selling with you makes the most sense, and just offer them information on exactly how the process works in general, even if they don't end up using you. And this is what's going to perceive you as the highest status. Now, for steps 4 and 6, this then becomes the demo, the close, and then nurturing to get more referrals. So step number 4 is making your move. You want to show you're the solution with visuals, with stories. If you can get case studies with you and your client, interviews, if you can just have people maybe recording them, talking about them, or showing your Google reviews, this is going to boost your authority and status. This is going to build trust insanely. And then what you're going to want to do is the wrap up. So you want to handle objections with the 3 Ps. This is actually really, really important. A lot of people don't know this. Push when needed, pull by walking away, and as Ryan says, persist to win-win. And then finally is the follow-up. And this is the thing that is overlooked the most with agents. It is the most important step, and Ryan talks about it all the time. You want to follow up with clients. You have to follow through on your promises, and you have to follow back with past prospects. What you have to understand is any business that's out there that is winning is scaling because of reoccurring sales from existing customers. Now, with real estate, this is a little bit not as straightforward as far as how that works, but the point is referrals are your best friend here when it comes to these clients. If you're not following up with any past prospects and you're only working on what's in front of you, you're literally leaving 50% of your sales on the table. If you're making $200,000 a year, you could be literally doubling your sales, tripling your sales, if you just simply followed up with past prospects and got more referrals and just closed the past prospects in general. And Ryan talks about this nonstop in his podcast. I definitely recommend you check it out. He talks about it a little bit more in depth. But the point is, you just want to follow through on your promises and follow up with these people. Engage with them. This is your job, to interact with different prospects. So with that being said, I know I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but I can't stress enough on how important following up is with clients. Now, with all this being said, it can be a little bit difficult to kind of manage all of this. And what I like to do is implement something called the FKD system. And basically what that means is you want to structure your day in 3 different ways. So number 1 is the finder. You want to be in CEO mode. You want to focus on growth, getting more leads. Then you want to be a keeper, the K part of the FKD system. Be in a CFO mode, budgets, finances, and then get in the doer mode. So execution, actually getting the work done. And if you couldn't tell, my favorite is the doer. Actually doing what you've planned to do. Obviously, without a plan and you're just doing, you don't really have any aim or direction. But without actually doing the work, you're not going to get any results. And so most people are really lacking on the doer mode, especially in 2026. But because of this, because most people are lazy nowadays, that gives you the competitive advantage to win now. And another way you can look at this is look at the 1,000-minute rule. Okay, treat each minute like $1. Invest wisely. I have heard Ryan Serhants talk about this all the time. Okay, 73.3 years equals 26,772 days equals 642,000 hours equals 38 million minutes. Okay, now literally about a third of your day is spent eating and sleeping, and the remaining is you have about 1,000 minutes left in a day. If you look about spending each minute as $1, what are you doing in order to actually fulfill that and make $2-3 every single minute? Are you actually fulfilling that time? Or are you wasting your time and doing things that are not actually making you money, but things that are filling in time, filling in the procrastination? What are you doing in order to actually get it done? Now, the core philosophy behind this is selling equals dating, right? I love saying this just because when you build genuine connections with people, people's want to sell their home, to work with you, becomes the need naturally. So now we got the mindset down, you got the lead generation down, and we need to get into scaling. So this is what Ryan talks about. The work in the wall. What you need to know as far as the work goes is doubling down on what actually works. We need to focus and face the reality of what's working. What lead sources are actually converting? Which content generates real business? Cut everything out that doesn't move the needle. Most agents will try something, it'll work for a specific amount of time, and then they question whether they should do it or not. How long have you actually been running something, a lead source, and giving it time to actually work? Most people do it for maybe a month, maybe 2. I usually never even see that much. And then they just conclude that it doesn't actually work. Most lead sources take about 3 to 6 months minimum to work. And if you're doing organic content, forget it. You need 12 to sometimes 24 months. I know it's crazy to actually see results. So when most people come to me and they say, hey, I don't think this is working. Have you actually tried a lead source long enough to be able to determine that? And now you need to identify your obstacles or the wall. Identify your internal obstacles, so the fear of hiring, scarcity mindset, imposter syndrome, and then identify your external obstacles like market shifts, competition, and regulations. And all this is important to understand because you can't defeat what you're not going to acknowledge. If you have a fear of hiring, you have a scarcity mindset, you're only going to work within the confines of what your brain is telling you can do. If you work past that and face the uncomfortability of being able to step outside of your comfort zone, scaling is going to become that much easier. And then obviously you need to identify the market shifts, competition, and regulations. If you can't acknowledge these as issues, you're also going to be not actually making any proactive change to those things because you're avoiding the reality of the situation. Now, Ryan Serhant cannot stress enough, and as you can obviously see on his YouTube channel or any other source, his personal brand is the product. And the attention he's attracting is the product. And so the brand equation when it comes down to any personal brand is core identity plus consistent content plus amplification. So the core identity is who you are, what you stand for. What makes you you? What makes you stand out from average Joe on the street? Why do people like you? What have you done for your town? What have you done for the community? What have you done for whatever? It doesn't even have to be local. Just how are you different from somebody else? Then having consistent content, so daily valuable presence, showing that you're persistent, showing that you are who you say you are, and you're actually in the field and you're putting in the work. Because think about it like this. I heard a quote one time, I forget who it was from. Someone who's on a sales call who's gone to the gym versus someone who hasn't. And the one on the gym says, you can put your faith in me because I show up to the gym every day, which should show you that I'm also going to show up for you every day. Versus someone who doesn't, the chance of them actually not being able to show up for you every day is much higher. Now, I'm not saying that someone who doesn't go to the gym is not going to produce good results. But I am saying is people that tend to do consistent things produce more consistent results. It's just, binary logic that is proven over and over and over again. So this is another part of it, very, very important. And then amplification, running paid ads, PR, partnerships, anything to extend your reach where you're not doing manual labor, but you're trading that for the investment that you're putting in order to get more money out of that. And this is the key for having a personal brand, for scaling, and everything that Ryan talks about in all of his podcasts. And the key thing to understand about this is your reputation should precede and attract opportunities. And the last thing Ryan talks about, which I find to be the most important, is the content to commerce flywheel. So in Ryan Serhant's brand, media powers everything because he posts consistent content, which leads to more attention. More attention brings in better leads. More leads brings in better revenue. Better revenue brings in better content, whether it's through better, actors, whether it's through coaching on how to actually create better scripts for the videos. And then better content leads to more attention. Now, the ecosystem Ryan uses is posting on social media and his YouTube channel. And this creates brand awareness. This brand awareness brings in leads for his brokerage. Then this awareness also brings in education customers for his Sell It program. So 2 separate things going on in the ecosystem together, which leads into one, obviously, total ecosystem. And then finally, awareness brings into production clients. Each channel feeds the other channels, and this is what allows for exponential growth and unlimited potential infinite scalability. Now that I've shown you Ryan Serhants' strategy for growing a successful real estate business going into 2026, you're probably wondering about the nitty-gritty details behind creating a successful YouTube ad strategy. Luckily for you, I've created an entire video going over just that right here. Not only going over just content, but YouTube ads as well. That aside, go check that video out, and I'll see you in the next one.